Hello everybody. In this video, we'll learn how solar and lunar eclipses develop and how we can predict them. An eclipse takes place when one heavenly body, such as the moon or planet, moves into the shadow of another heavenly body. During a solar eclipse, the moon casts two shadows on Earth. The first shadow is called the umbra. This shadow gets smaller as it reaches Earth. It is the dark center of the moon's shadow. The second shadow is called the penumbra. The penumbra gets larger as it reaches Earth. People standing in the penumbra will see a partial eclipse. People standing in the umbra will see a total eclipse. There are two types of eclipses on Earth: an eclipse of the moon, called a lunar eclipse, and an eclipse of the sun, called a solar eclipse. During a lunar eclipse, Earth moves between the sun and the moon. When this happens, Earth blocks the sunlight that normally is reflected by the moon. This sunlight is what causes the moon to shine. Instead of light hitting the moon's surface, Earth's shadow falls on it. This is an eclipse of the moon, a lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse can only occur when the moon is full. Lunar eclipses can be penumbral, partial, or total. A total lunar eclipse occurs when the moon and the sun are on exact opposite sides of Earth. Although the moon is in Earth's shadow, some sunlight reaches the moon. The sunlight passes through Earth's atmosphere, which causes Earth's atmosphere to filter out most of the blue light. This makes the moon appear red to people on Earth. A partial lunar eclipse happens when only part of the moon enters Earth's shadow. In a partial eclipse, Earth's shadow appears very dark on the side of the moon facing Earth. What people see from Earth during a partial lunar eclipse depends on how the sun, Earth, and the moon are lined up. Even as a penumbral eclipse is happening in your sky, you might not notice anything different about the moon. On the other hand, very observant people can detect a dark shading on the moon's face during a penumbral eclipse. Lunar eclipses can occur only at full moon. A lunar eclipse usually lasts for a few hours. At least two partial lunar eclipses happen every year. But total lunar eclipses are rare because the moon can be completely immersed in the Earth's umbra during a total lunar eclipse. These eclipses can be seen from the entire nighttime hemisphere. Unlike solar eclipses, it is safe to look at a lunar eclipse. The moon may turn red or coppery colored during the total portion of an eclipse. The blood moon, as it's called, is possible because while the moon is in total shadow, some light from the sun passes through Earth's atmosphere and is bent towards the moon. While other colors in the spectrum are blocked and scattered by Earth's atmosphere, the red light tends to make it through easier. The exact color that the moon appears depends on the amount of dust and clouds in the atmosphere. If there are extra particles in the atmosphere from, say, a recent volcanic eruption, the moon will appear in a darker shade of red. This figure shows how the appearance of the moon changes as it passes through Earth's shadow during a lunar eclipse. Sometimes, when the moon orbits Earth, it moves between the sun and the Earth. When this happens, the moon blocks the light of the sun from reaching Earth. This causes an eclipse of the sun or solar eclipse. During a solar eclipse, the moon casts a shadow onto Earth. There are three types of solar eclipses. The first is a total solar eclipse, which is only visible from a small area on Earth. The second type is a partial solar eclipse, which happens when the sun, moon, and Earth are not exactly lined up. The third type is an annular solar eclipse, which happens when the moon is farthest from Earth. The people who see the total solar eclipse are in the center of the moon's shadow when it hits Earth. The sky becomes dark as night. For a total eclipse to take place, the sun, moon, and Earth must be in direct line. Only observers in the umbra see a total eclipse. Observers in the penumbra will see a partial solar eclipse. Everyone else sees nothing. The penumbra is not uniform, but it shades gradually from the completely dark umbra out towards the edges. The reason is simple. As you move outwards away from the edge of the umbra, you will see an increasing fraction of the sun peeking out from behind the moon. Totality lasts only a few minutes, with the shadow sweeping rapidly west to east. During a partial solar eclipse, the sun, moon, and Earth are not exactly lined up. The sun appears to have a dark shadow on only a small part of its surface. During an annular solar eclipse, the moon is at its farthest point from Earth, and it does not block the sun completely. This creates what looks like a ring around the moon. Solar eclipses can only occur at the new moon. Unlike lunar eclipses, it is not safe to look directly at the sun during a solar eclipse. So why don't we have a lunar eclipse at every full moon and a solar eclipse at every new moon? The reason is because the moon's orbital path is tilted about 5 degrees in relation to Earth's orbital path. These two paths only cross at the so-called line of nodes, a line connecting the two nodes of the moon. For an eclipse to occur, the line of nodes and the sun need to be in line. If the two line up during a new moon, we have a solar eclipse. If they line up during a full moon, we have a lunar eclipse. Because of the predictable orbit of the moon around Earth and Earth around the sun, we have about 2 eclipse seasons each year, with a lunar eclipse at the new moon and a solar eclipse at the full moon. This figure shows the interactions between the orbital paths of Earth, the moon, and the sun during the eclipse seasons. If a full or new moon happen when the moon is above or below the ecliptic plane, no eclipses take place. In summary, for an eclipse to happen, these two conditions need to be met. The moon must be in its new phase or full phase, and the moon must be at or near the line connecting its two nodes. From any given location on Earth, you should see a total lunar eclipse every 3 years or so. You should see total solar eclipse only every 360 years. We use the Saros cycle to predict the frequency of eclipses and the locations where they can be seen. In summary, we learned that eclipses happen when the Earth and the Moon cast a shadow on each other. There are two types of shadows: the umbra, where an eclipse is total, and the penumbra, where the eclipse is partial. There are two types of eclipses on Earth: an eclipse of the moon and an eclipse of the sun. During a lunar eclipse, Earth moves between the sun and the moon and casts its shadow over the moon. Lunar eclipses can be penumbral, partial, or total. During a solar eclipse, the moon moves between Earth and the sun and casts its shadow over a portion of Earth. Solar eclipses can be total, partial, or annular. Lunar eclipses can occur only at full moon, and solar eclipses can only occur at new moon. The tilt of the moon's orbital path means eclipses occur only during two periods every year. Thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video.